Today we have a very interesting question about one meal a day. Hello, Wellness Warriors. Welcome to Mind Blowing Mind and Wellness with Violet, Pat Chat Edition. I'm Violet.
And I'm Pat. The question is coming from Grateful Keto. First question is, how can I get enough nutrition on one meal a day? As it is, I eat 2 meals a day. So Grateful Keto is like on the 2 meals a day plan. At each meal, I eat 40 grams of protein, 10 grams of carbs. So that's 200 calories from carbs and protein. I cook with butter and don't really count how much. I am full at every meal. There is no way I could possibly ingest 1,800 calories in fat. There's like another interrogation mark here for me, but like even if I double my protein and carbs, 400 calories, I would need to ingest 1,600 calories from fat. That's way too much food on one sitting.
The first thing I'm going to point out is that if I'm eating meal one, I turn around and eat meal 2, and I'm satiated, why am I trying to get in 1,800 calories? So this is where I feel like the problem becomes, we focus on calories, which my body does not understand, then we will make these kind of mistakes. Because here's what's interesting. Grateful Keto, if you actually needed more energy, you'd be hungry. And your body would be asking you for more energy. So my guess here is that you're probably in a good scenario. And what I mean by that is you're probably in the scenario where you've become fat adapted and your body is using fat for fuel, and you actually have weight to lose. And in that case, what you're not realizing is that your body is taking however many calories, if we love to put this word on it, your body is already taking the right amount of energy from you. So for example, when we look at the beginning of my weight loss journey, there were times there where I was eating less than, well actually, I was eating like 1,500 calories, I think at certain points. There were certain times where I was eating as low as 1,000, but on a regular basis, I was eating like 2. So if we look at that, why on those days was I eating 1,500 or 1,000? And the reality is because my body was taking it from me.
And you were eating to satiation too. Like if on one day you eat 1,000 calories and you feel full, you go with your 1,000 calories, right?
Exactly. Because it's not about eating a certain amount of energy from fat. We need to be careful that we understand what keto actually is. A healthy ketogenic lifestyle is not eating extra fat. A healthy ketogenic lifestyle is eating 20 grams of carbs or less per day. That's what it is. All the other things are not what makes a ketogenic lifestyle a ketogenic lifestyle. People talk about how much fat to have and how much protein to have. The truth is, and this is where we get confused, you needed to have protein regardless. If you're doing low carb, you're doing low fat, you're doing vegetarian, you still need protein and a certain amount of protein to build appropriately. So that's the first thing I'm going to say to you, Grateful Keto, is I feel like you're aiming at a calorie number, which is why we tell people don't pay attention to the calorie number, because the flip side of the coin is, in my history, when I was eating to lose weight, 1,500 calories, I didn't lose weight.
I want to point something out. I have a couple ideas here because first of all, like 40 grams of protein per meal seems low. Like that's 80 grams per day. My calculate, unless like you weigh half, or maybe if you weigh half as me,
female,
like I'm, I know, but like I'm 230 pounds, and my number of protein should be like is like, that's what I was checking, is 175 grams. So maybe
Really?
maybe. So if your weight is already like 120 pounds, maybe
Just
that
for
could
you to
be
know,
that could be possible.
my number is 90.
90. Okay.
So
fine.
she's female.
Okay, so that's good. The thing I think where you maybe like you don't, or maybe the thing that's not taken into consideration here, you don't need to add a full 1,600 calories of fat, because the meat you eat should have already fat on it. You don't like, of course, if you're on a keto lifestyle, you don't want to eat the lean cuts of meat that has almost no fat. But even there's always a little bit of fat. So this counts into your grams of fat per day. So you don't have to add the 1,600 calories of fat. It's already included in the meat you're eating. So adding a little bit more meat. So my idea is, if you weigh your meat, a piece of steak, for example, you have to take into consideration the fat that's on the meat.
So here's the thing, and like I guess we're going to go back to the part where you said that you don't count the butter. So, and this is where I think where you're going with this is, at the end of the day, I just want to make sure that when you're calculating these numbers, that we do use a calculator, because it's going to help us to be consistent in what we're doing. And then making sure that we keep it in mind that, like, even though the meat on your plate, especially depending on how you calculate, like if I use my calculator and I do chicken breast, it's telling me 42, let's call it, grams of protein.
But how many grams of fat on that?
But it's telling me 6 grams of fat because it was a
Okay.
chicken breast, right? But then when you check a chicken thigh, skin removed, so the same way of cooking, I have 49, so let's call it 50, 49.9, so 50 grams of protein with 10 grams of fat. So I feel like even when you're looking in your calculator, and you have to be kind of careful, like, am I choosing the right kind of meat, the right kind of whatever? But if you think about it, for Violet, so like first and foremost is just getting the numbers in my head and understanding. For Violet, before I started doing keto, when I was eating normally, I ate a chicken thigh and drumstick, so the leg. When I did keto, and I've been doing keto, so as a chicken thigh and the leg, it has not changed. It's not because that you're doing keto that you're changing the way that you're eating protein. My protein needs have not changed. I want you to look at this situation in a grander scale. Like, whatever I'm doing today is something that I'm going to do for the rest of my life. So this is why when we do low fat diets and we're trying to restrict, it's not sustainable, because your body actually needs the fat. So if I'm taking it out and my body's fighting for it, eventually what happens? My body's going to win, right? So I want you to first of all, make sure that you're using an actual calculator, which I'm hoping that you are. And then I want you to also take this next part into consideration. If I'm in a weight loss process, my body is taking fat from me. So yes, I'm going to feel satiated on the smaller amount that I'm eating, because I don't need to eat that much more, because all I really need is the protein. And if I understand you well, you're doing 40 and 40, which is 80. I mean, I'm tall. That's why I'm at 90, and I'm active, right? I do a lot of sports. So like, and I'm at 90. So if you're at 80 and you're less active than me or shorter than me, it would make sense that you would be at 80. So I feel like you're doing good for what you told me that's happening here, but I feel like you're scared because you feel like you're supposed to be doing more. That's not how this works. It's not one size fits all.
If we take a look at the last sentence from Grateful Keto's comment, maybe I'm struggling because although I prefer red meat over other meats, which is fine, like red meat usually is fattier, I don't like the fat on the steak. But again, like you
There's
depending,
fat in the steak.
yeah, there's fat in the steak, but like usually it's like it's not like pork where you sometimes have like a big side of
You can.
fat. You
You
can,
can.
but on steak, yeah, you can. It's true.
What I want to point out here is that it's not that you need to add fat. And this is where I come back to, that's not what keto is. So if you're adding fat because you feel like you need to hit the fat number, because I'm looking at my fat number, it's 164. Pat did the math, that's 1476. So I'm almost at 1500, you're at 1800. But the thing is that if you're doing that to try to hit the fat number, that's unnecessary if you're in a fat loss trajectory. It's different if you're not in a fat loss. Like, so if you're trying to stay stable, now we're talking about a different situation. So I wish I had more information from you, because I feel like it changes my answer. So I'm going to give both answers. Answer number one, you're trying to lose weight? Don't worry about hitting 1800 calories from fat. Eat till satiation. You're satiated because your body's taking fat from you. Possibility number two, that you're living what Violet lives, where you don't want to lose any more weight. You are happy where you are, but your body is still losing. If that's your story, Grateful Keto, and please, I hope you answer this and let us know where you are in this. But if that's actually your situation, say my answer is different now. My answer is, you do need to add a little bit of fat, but not as much as you think. The truth is, I stay stable with 2 tablespoons of fat. So that butter that you're adding could explain why.
If you don't need to lose weight, maybe a couple tips we can give her, like adding a little bit of fat in your coffee. You do that. If you like the leaner cuts of meat, just add a little bit of cheese on your meat. Like
Or if you don't want to add the carbs, add olive oil.
Add olive oil, but do count the butter you add. Maybe put a little bit more. If you eat salad with full fat dressing, just add a little bit more. So that's like easy tips, like to
keep your weight stable.
To keep your weight stable, yeah.
If you're trying to not lose anymore.
But again, like I agree with you. You're not really saying if you're always hungry. You do 2 meals. Oh, but no. The point is, how do we get to 2 meals a day to 1 meal a day?
So here's the other thing.
And again, like the question I have is like, should we have OMAD as a goal to attain?
No,
So
no. So, I mean, the reason, and I'm going to be very transparent. The reason I do one meal a day, as everybody knows, I don't like to cook.
Mm.
It makes my life easier. I have to worry about cooking one meal. In the ideal story, when everybody's visiting everybody, my daughter eats at my mom's. So the truth is, I very regularly only need to make one meal. And as our kids are getting older and they can make their own breakfast and lunch, it's really getting easier and easier for me to live a life where I'm only having to make one meal. So that's why I'm actually one meal a day. Not because, now, do I get extra benefits? Sure. I have longer fasting periods between meals. And I mean fasting. So with a grain of salt, I put fat in in one of my coffees, right? So it's fasting, but it's fat, like, right? It's fat fasting. But the reason that I don't mind that is because there are the other occasions where I'm going to do a longer fast and like do that cleanup. But I think the thing that I want you guys to think about is that OMAD is not necessarily a goal, right? If it works for you, great. If you're eating healthy 2 meals a day and they're relatively close together, you might still be getting a nice long period of time without eating, which is fine. I do encourage people, maybe once a year, do a longer fast. But is it necessary? It's not necessary.
So like
it's healthy though.
Yeah. Truth is, you kind of break your fast by having a coffee with cream. So if you want to get to 1 meal a day for the health benefits, if you would do it like very, very cleanly, that would mean like having a black coffee in the morning, or like no calories at all, no energy at all, like coming in between your meals. So that's why we say, like, is it a goal to attain? Not necessarily. If you're already having coffee with the heavy cream, for example, in the morning, you're already kind of breaking your fast. So
Yeah.
if you're happy with 2 meals a day, just stick with 2 meals a day.
And if you want to move towards 1 meal a day, it's still not about calories. It's about getting those meals a little, so not eating if you're not hungry, and then having that first meal when you're hungry. And if the reality is that you eat that meal and you're satiated and you make it to the next day, then that's when you were ready to be 1 meal a day. I didn't become 1 meal a day because I was trying to. I became 1 meal a day because it started to make no sense that I'm going to eat lunch at 4 and then turn around and have supper at 8. It wasn't making sense, which is what was happening to me. My meal was getting pushed. It was because I wasn't hungry. Rule number 1 that I follow: I only eat when I'm hungry. And when I say eat, I mean anything. Like, so that first coffee I have in the morning, I have it when I'm hungry. I never have it before I'm hungry. So if I get up in the morning, especially if I'm home, I can sometimes have that first coffee at 4. So I want people to think about that, because maybe that's another part of the reason that you're struggling to get to 2 meals. If you're having that first meal because you feel like, oh, I have to have it now because otherwise I won't be able. But if you're not really hungry,
eat when you're hungry. Eat, like, stop eating when you're satiated. I think, like,
understand that your body does take fat from you if you're in a weight loss process. As a matter of fact, your body takes fat from you regardless. If you're in a weight loss process or not, your body takes fat from you. However, if you are doing keto and are really in a weight loss process, your body's continually taking fat from you to supplement what you're eating. Right? And you will know when you need to eat more, because your body will start supplementing itself less and you're going to be hungrier, right? And that just happens naturally. Again, it's one of those things that you kind of, I'm sure I would have gotten there. If I would have kept going. I would have gotten to the point where my body was like, okay, you need to eat more. I just didn't want to wait.
Okay, my attention got caught to one sentence. Grateful Keto put on a comment: I would have to fat fortify everything. Like, that's we were saying right now, that's not true. You don't need to fat fortify everything.
Keto,
instead of adding just if you need it, like a little bit here and there.
Keto is not about adding extra fat.
So don't start wrapping your meat in bacon and add butter to everything. Like, that's not it. You don't need to add the extra fat. Like, your body is gonna, when you're in ketosis, your body is gonna go get the fat where it is. If it didn't have enough in your food intake, it's gonna go get it in your body.
Okay, I'm gonna just put something very basic out there. I want people to think about. Maybe this should be a whole video by itself, and I'm gonna say it here anyway. When we were doing low fat, our energy was coming from carbohydrates. But when we were making a meal, so when we were cooking food, we weren't going into the cupboard and pulling out the sugar and putting a tablespoon of sugar into our food. We weren't fortifying our food with sugar. And it's the same thing here. We don't need to fortify our meats with fat. We just need to eat the fat that comes along with the meat. And if we're going to cook something that can be fried, fry with an appropriate oil, right? Whether it's butter, whether it's lard, whether it's coconut oil. So I want you to think about it like that. Like when you were carb motivated, you weren't adding extra sugar to things that already had sugar. So now that
coffee,
you're
maybe
there's no sugar in coffee.
no, yeah, okay.
I'm
yes,
talking
to
about
things having like
yeah.
already
You weren't
having
you
some
weren't
sugar,
you weren't
yeah.
adding sugar to things that already had sugar.
Yeah.
So don't add fat to things that already have fat. Like for example, you talked about hamburger, adding fat to hamburger. Like there's no need to add fat to hamburger, right? Is that making sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I hope that this clarified that OMAD is not a goal, first of all, but it's good to get there because if you want to fast and do repair, that's an easy way to get it going. But it's not a goal for everybody. It doesn't have to be what you're doing. And I hope that this helped us to understand that sometimes when we're on a weight loss trajectory, the reason we're not eating the amount of fat that seems to be recommended is because your body's taking it from you. I don't need to eat it if my body is using the what's on board, which is part of the goal, right? To get my body back to an appropriate weight for health purposes. So if you want to know more about healthy ketogenic lifestyle, there's some videos on the screen right now that you can use to improve your health. I want to thank you for watching Mind Blowing Health and Wellness with Violet, Pat Chat Edition. All my wellness warriors, always happy that you come back.
Yeah, sure.
New people, glad to meet you. Can't wait to talk to you guys again next week.
See you next week.